Um, I don't know, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. And even when, right at the very beginning of the coronavirus, I started to record shiurim on Sefer Derech Hashem. And I just want to turn off WhatsApp so that noise stops in the background. One second. And to learn one of these svarim methodically, properly. And 1 second, I'll get back to here. I felt like this gives us an opportunity to try. Once we've been getting together with Zoom shiurim, and this time slot was worked out for us. So I feel like it's very, very important. To learn, and just before, we're going to learn Sefer Derech Hashem from the Ramchal, and we're not going to learn the Hakdama because it's very dense and it's very difficult. It would take us, even though it's a couple of pages, it would take us a long time. But I'll just tell you very briefly now, what it is that he says there, and what the idea is behind it. And a lot of times we go through life, and we have a certain topic. Let's just say like Hilchos Shabbos or something. And you can learn Hilchos Shabbos a number of times, and you can know a lot about how not to break Shabbos and how to do the halachos that you need to do on Shabbos, and still never really have an understanding of what the malachos of Shabbos are all about. And all sorts of people think that if you do something with a shinui, so then it's that's like the same reason that you have to take food with your fingers in borer, and all sorts of things that people don't really understand until a person understands there's an underlying structure. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of details, of pratim, of parts. But when and it's impossible. This is what Ramchal says. It's impossible for a person to hang on to all of those parts as parts. But once a person understands there's an underlying structure, once a person understands that there's a greater whole over there, there's a forest, and all of those trees play a critical role in the creation of the forest. But if you can zoom out and see what it's all about, then not only do you remember things better, but you understand them. And like the whole Sefer Das Tfunos, which we're not going to be learning now, but the whole Sefer is just to come to understanding. It's he writes in the whole beginning, it's not about knowledge, it's about just to understand how Hashem, or why Hashem, and what these things are, how he runs the world, and that's what he writes in Derech Hashem. It's written in a very, very methodical, structured way. That's the way the Ramchal wrote in almost all the Svarim he writes, and it's a sefer that is here in order to. It's going to get to all the pratim. It's an amazing sefer, and we'll see what it's going to. We're not going to be learning it straight through. We're going to be learning it lamaisa, sort of. There's a lot of parts of it that are very, very interesting and fascinating, and obviously important, and at the same time, they're not necessarily as pertinent to us and our avoda and our connection to Hashem. So we're going to be learning through the Sefer. In the beginning, we're going to be learning through it, straight through, but then we're going to be skipping around and scripting bits and pieces along the way. That's based on Rabbi Spinner, which I wouldn't have thought to do myself, but when I spoke to him already, not now, a while ago, about the Sefer, and he said, in general, when you teach the Sefer, it's not the type of Sefer that needs to be taught straight through. And he told me certain places where it's appropriate to skip certain topics in order to get a shlemus of how to use this Sefer, like Lamaisa. I was almost going to tell Odaya that I wanted to call it Sefer Das Tfuna, Sefer Derech Hashem Lamaisa, but I don't think I could probably call it that. I don't know enough to say that. So, but it's an incredible Sefer, and we're hopefully going to develop that underlying structure and that underlying theme and understanding, and then upon which many things about life, about Torah, about Hashem, will hopefully become clear. Okay, so let's start. Hashem. Yeah, so sometimes there's different text. The one that I gave out to you is a good one from Sefaria, but if you have any of the versions of the Sefer, you could use them. The one that I use is actually put out by Rabbi Spinner. This is, I don't know if anybody's ever seen these blue Svarim like this. So this is Rabbi Spinner, and it has his notes on the bottom. And Okay, Rabbi Spinner, but I don't know if everybody knows who that is, but he is a Rebbe of mine, person I'm very close with, and he's the person who puts out the Sefer from Moshe David Valley that I'm very much connected to. He's sorry over here. Okay. The Bori is Baruch Shemo. So the whole first parak is about Hashem. The whole first parak is, to give us an understanding of as much as we can know about Hashem, and what do we need to know? What can we know about Hashem? Okay. Derech Aleph is about Babori is Baruch Shemo, and is broken into 4 chalakim. Also, the whole Sefer is broken into 4 parts. The first one is about I'll explain it, but it's about just basically the basics, like the structure of the world. The second chelik is about hashkacha. The third chelik is about nevuah and Torah, and the fourth chelik, which is where we're going to be at some point getting to, hopefully, is the chelik that really focuses on the Maisa. It really goes through all the mitzvos throughout the day, throughout the year, and explains how, based on what we learned through the Sefer, how all the mitzvos are a part of this whole structure. So that's those are the 4 parts. We're going to start with part 1. And part 1 itself is broken up into different sections. The first part is about Hashem, and then there's about the world, and then there's about man. Right? So we'll see how it goes. Okay. Kol ish miYisrael, halcha aleph. Kol ish miYisrael tzarech shiyamin v'yeda. So every Jewish person has to believe and has to know sheyesham motzui rishon kadmun v'nitzchi. That there is an existence, an entity, right? Talking about Hashem, that there is an entity that is the first, the original. Kadmon means he's, infinitely old, v'nitzchi, and has always been. V'hu shehimtzi umamtzi kol ma shenimtza b'metzius, and this entity is what made and continues to make, right? Not just shehimtzi, that he made it, but umamtzi, he continuously is making it. Kol ma shenimtza b'metzius, everything that exists in existence. And who is this? V'hu ha'aloka baruch hu. We're talking about Hashem. Okay, so that's point number 1. We need to know that there's this idea, a concept that every Jewish person has to believe. Okay, we'll see, maybe we'll talk about it later along. Why doesn't everybody have to believe this? Why is it only Jewish people? We'll see perhaps along the way. But he said that that there is a matzui rishon, that there is an entity that exists, that is eternal and creates everything, and that we call Hashem. That's point number 1. Now, what can we know, so to speak, about this entity? What can we know about Hashem? That this entity, that the real Hashem, right? This gets very weird because we lack the language to have this conversation, which is the point that he's making, right? But anything that we know or can say about Hashem, right? Like we use that word Hashem, and when we say it, we mean everything that Hashem is, right? We mean, when we say those words, Baruch Hashem, or Hashem is giving me a real nisayon, right? When we say those words, we mean our concept of God, of Hashem, which is that, infinite, everything created, right? Exactly what he just described, right? That's what I would assume. But he's saying to us, though, anything that we can possibly understand or grasp is not going to really be Hashem, right? Because Hashem himself, so to speak, right? The essence, atzmuso yisbarach, what we say. So that is something that we can't say any words about. We can't say anything. We can't, that is something that is beyond, even the word infinite, right, is not actually talking about Hashem, right? Because infinite is already a concept that, even though we can't grasp infinity, but we can grasp the concept of infinite, and that's already something that we can, toy with in our minds and think about, and therefore, that's already not an accurate description of Hashem himself, right? Because Hashem himself is going to be something beyond everything. Now, again, that doesn't, when we say Hashem and when we're davening to Hashem, of course, it includes that. powerfulness of Hashem, however you would say that, right? However, there's nothing that we can ever say or speak about or relate to that aspect of Hashem. And everything that we are going to talk about Hashem in this Sefer and really in everything is all the midos of Hashem that Hashem teaches us to understand Him by, right? But it's all like a construct, kaviyachol. Okay, are you guys with me? This is like an important idea. Okay, the ragzen no dabo. But what can we sort of know about that entity? And again, like even these words is not, it's not real. It's just as much as we can know anything, we know that it's like this. Shehu matzui shalem b'chol minei shleimus v'lo nimtza bo chisaron klal. Right, that entity is a perfect, absolute perfection. Absolute. Again, there's no other word that we could use for it, and there is no chisaron there at all. There is no lack. There is nothing not right, not fair, not, in other words, that's the only thing that we can know. Well, even fair is a bad word to use, because fairness is way lower down in terms of, in hanhaga. So, but the idea that there's an entity that is there, this Hashem that is perfect in every which way, that has no lack in any which way, and that's what Hashem is. Okay, so now this is an interesting thing here he puts into the brackets, because where do we where does it say, where do we know this? So the truth is it tells us in the Torah that Hashem tzaddik v'yasher hu ein ovel, that Hashem is doesn't do anything, but that's not what he's talking about here. He's talking about here like this level of perfection and shleimus. So look what he explains over here. Ulam dvarim ela yadanum bekabbalah min ha'avos min hanavim v'hisigum kol Yisrael b'maimet har Sinai v'omdu al amitasam b'veru. So this is a fascinating thing. These are not things that the Torah can tell us about Hashem, right? The Torah can tell us that Hashem is perfect and expresses to us these words in terms, but that's all using the terminology, we have psukim that say things like mi yamalil gvuros Hashem, right? We can't possibly speak about how powerful Hashem is, and we have psukim that allude to this, right? But there's nowhere in the Torah that it tells us that let's say lahavdil elef alfei avdalos, right? But the archaeologists and historians and people like this that are not Maiminim, so they view the God of the Bible as what they called him. I can't even say the names because they spell out Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? They spell it Yahweh, right? Can't say it, but Yahweh. Not like Jay's Witnesses that also you can't say, but that's a different. But that they view him as like a God, a deity, a power who says he's so powerful and all these other things, but they don't see it in this way that we just said, that there's this entity that's outside of everything, and everything that exists is only because of it every moment, and it doesn't say that anywhere explicitly in the Torah. So he says over here, because this is what Maimet Har Sinai was all about. This is why Maimet Har Sinai was such an important event, not just because we got the Torah. That's also the importance of it. However, Maimet Har Sinai was when Klal Yisrael experienced this. They saw this. They knew this with absolute clarity, right? They were all there, 600,000 people, 3 million people, and they had, you and me were there somehow, and we experienced this. V'hisigum kol Yisrael b'maimet har Sinai, v'omdu al amitasam b'verur. Right? This was something, it was clear as day. That's what Maimet Har Sinai did. We met Hashem. So to the extent that a nivra, to the extent that a person is able to grasp the idea that there's this entity that's beyond everything, that's everything happening, that's what we saw at Maimet Har Sinai. That's where we know this from. And this is our Masorah, that and the Nevi'im, and then Chazal explained this to us, etc. Obviously in much greater detail. But where were we taught this idea? Where did we learn? For example, let's just say, where did Klal Yisrael learn that Hashem was just not the most powerful of the gods, right? In other words, they saw he got him out of Mitzrayim, and he keeps on saying, I'm the one and the most powerful and all these other things. But right, how at Maimon Sinai, it was proven. It was not proven by by giving proofs. It was experienced. Klal Yisrael experienced Hashem in this way. We all knew this. Right? And it's been taught from generation to generation from those people who were at Har Sinai. They all, at that time, left that event with no doubt whatsoever in their mind, with absolute clarity, as much as they can know that they see their hands in front of their face. They saw the truth of who and what Hashem truly is. And they told their children, because there's, the Torah tells us, don't forget what you saw at Ma'amad Har Sinai. Not just don't forget the Torah, right? But don't forget Ma'amad Har Sinai, right? We can't forget this event, because what we saw at this event was this experience of God that no other person or nation or anything has ever had, or this revelation of Hashem. And teach this to your children. So it not just to teach the Torah, but to teach Ma'amad Har Sinai, the event of what we experienced over there. Okay, so this is a very interesting idea what he's saying here. That this is like the one aspect of the Torah that is based, sort of only on Masorah. Again, there's nothing that's like in all of Kol Torah Kula that doesn't say this. You know what I mean? But the idea that there's a certain yediyah or a certain element of our emunah that we were given at Har Sinai, that's not something that can be deduced or learned, but only passed down and a part of our spiritual DNA. But don't think that this is that there's no way to logically understand this, because he says there's a way to even to prove that things have to be this way, meaning like it's that a person. I don't know if this really applies so much now. Okay, let's see. But basically, he's saying that all of the sciences and math and all of these things also point to the same idea. I'm not sure exactly what he means with it. I'm not sure, but what he I'm not sure what he means by this exactly. I'm not sure. On the one hand, he says that we need the Masorah from Ma'amad Har Sinai, and then he says, but you could prove this through math. I'm not sure. But he says, I'm not going to talk about this now. So me neither. So therefore, he says he's just going to give us now a few brief hakdamos, a few brief ideas, and that's really what the first parak is about Hashem. These are like basically based on the Yud Gimel Ikrim of the Rambam. More or less, and these are the list of things that, again, there are psukim and things that speak to these concepts, but all of these ideas are the ideas that are packed into what he just said from before, packed into this concept that we experienced at Har Sinai, that there's this entity that's beyond anything, beyond everything, and anything and everything that exists is only because of it, and all of that. So these are the things that follow from that. Okay, Gimel. Okay. If there's any questions at any point, I guess I don't know. But you could just turn off your mic and come in. Okay. Od tzarich sheyeda she'amatzoi hazeh yisbarach shemo hine mitziuso mitzius muchrach she'efshar hedro klal. Okay, so this is the idea that there's only one thing in existence that has to be, and that's Hashem, right? That there is, like, the universe could cease to exist, and that would not affect Hashem's existence at all. Whereas if we conceive of Hashem stopping to exist, so that the universe would stop to exist also, right? In other words, that the Hashem is the only thing that has to be, and there's the only thing that can't exist without that. Dalit. Right? It's not dependent on anything else, his existence. It's everything else is dependent on Hashem, on him. it, however you want to say. Again, we're talking about that place of Hashem that we don't even have words for. But the point is that that entity, that existence, is completely independent, completely not related to anything else. However, everything else is completely dependent and related to it. Hey, that this entity is an absolute, oneness. Now, the reason that this is important to stress, and why he's going to go into this a little more, is that the idea that we talk about Hashem in all different ways, right? We talk about Hashem with different midos. We talk about Hashem, with different even parts, right? We'll use anthropomorphic things. Hashem has eyes, and Hashem has an arm, and all of these things. So on the one hand, we relate to Hashem as a thing that has many parts that we can relate to, each of those different parts differently, right? At the same time, what he's saying over here, though, is that his real existence, his real essence, is completely pashut, is completely simple. Okay? It's a complete oneness. B'li harkavav ribui klal, v'cholesh lemuyos kulam nimtzayim bo b'derech pashut. Right? In other words, there's not really something that we can grasp. He's going to explain to us. Right? In a person, we all have all different midos, all different abilities, and each trait will have its own name. Derech mashal, hazikaron, right? My memory, haratzon, my desire, hadimyon, my imagination. Right? They don't have what to do with each other. A person can have a really bad memory and a great imagination, or vice versa. They're all different pieces and parts of a person. Right? Okay, so when it comes to us, all of our parts are parts, right? We have different things and they are separate from each other, so to speak. They're all unified in that they're all a part of me, right? But to me, it's very clear that we're made up of parts, right? Even physically, we're all parts. Right? Even though Hashem has these different, again, caveat, these traits, these midos that in us are different, right? Because he does have all of those things. We do say, like we kept saying, Hashem wants, Hashem knows, Hashem this, right? You do use those words, but it's not the same with Hashem as it is with us, right? With us, those are parts of a whole. Hashem's oneness and wholeness contains in it all of these things, but it's a simple oneness. Right? Right? Hashem is one simple, again, simple meaning not broken down perfection. She Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this because this whole chapter is an introduction to be able to get to the parts that we can talk about. You know what I mean? These are all the parts that we just have to make sure that we don't misunderstand all of these things. But I don't want to spend so much time on this. But the idea, basically, again, just Hashem is one perfect shleimus. And even though we can't really understand or relate to this idea, every midah and part of Hashem is only a part of that shleimus, but it's not a part. It comes right. Okay, we can't explain. Okay, very good. We can't really understand this. We can't really picture this. This is very distant from our ability to grasp it and to picture it. We really basically can't even say that. We can't describe it. We can't explain it. Right? Because our brains, if you want to just put this in a very physical sense, right? What do we think with? We think with our brains. Our brains are made of physical things. Everything that our brain will ever experience is other physical things. So there's just, we have no way of going outside of that or going beyond that, because we are completely bound by teva, right? But we can understand that teva itself is just a construct within which we are bound, right, and constricted. However, Hashem is outside of that. Right? Because we can only imagine in our mind anything that our five senses have taken in, right? We can only think about blue because we've seen blue. We can only think about dragons because we've heard the idea of dragons. Now, you can now with your mind extrapolate and think about things that you've never seen or heard before, but it's only going to be based on extrapolation abilities from things that you've seen and heard before, right? A person has no way to get out of the confines. Okay. Fine. We really can't understand this aspect of Hashem when we're talking about Hashem again on this level. There are many parts of Hashem He gives us the ability to understand, but when we're talking about Hashem on this level, we're talking about things that are beyond our abilities. Don't make any sort of comparisons between what we see, how things work down here, and how Nivraim work to the way Hashem works, because you can't make a comparison at all. But again, this is one of those things that we know from our Masorah. Now again, he writes this idea that, and it's clarified and made, clear through nature. Shia Fralko Panam Shulu Yimotzi Matsu Echad Mishulal Mikol Ateva Chukos Ugulov Mikol Heder Chisaron Mikol Ribu Varkova Mikol Yachas Ve'erech Mikol Mikre Abruim Shia Hu Asiba Mitios Lecholim Tzos Lecholan Ola Behem. Right, because there's also this like part of philosophical arguments about how there has to be everything complicated came from something more simple before it, etc. So if you follow that the whole way, there has to be a basic simplicity. But I guess I don't want to get into all of this. Okay. Basically, say, if not for all of this that we've said so far, it's not possible for the world to be the way that it would be. But okay, we're not going to get into that. Fine. So far, so good. So there's all these things about Hashem that we can't really understand, but we can use these words like perfection and things like that. Okay. Furthermore, now this is not the oneness that we said before. The oneness that we said before was oneness as opposed to parts. Here we're saying one as opposed to only one of these entities. There's not another one also, right? It's not possible logically. It's not possible for there to be more than one entity that has to be, that is not dependent on anything else. There is no other. So anything else that we see or hear about or read about or would know that exists is only existing because he is making it be. He is creating it and having it exist. Right? So again, everything is dependent on him, but this is the idea of yichud, that there's one and not another. There's only Hashem. Okay. So now he's going to sum this up for us. Zion. Nimtza klal hayadiyas hashrashiyos ha'ela sheish. Okay, so there's 6 core ideas over here, 6 basic concepts that we gleaned from the ideas in this parak. And again, we're not going to really get back to this more or less at all. This is just like, setting the ground rules. Like, basically, like for example, if a person has a problem hashkafically or in emunah with any of the points up until now, so then this is not the Sefer for you. In other words, this is like, once a person understands these things that we've said until now, so then we can step further and understand why this entity that's perfect and all, did, so to speak, what he did. However, if a person would have, problems in emunah and questions about anything that he said until now, so then the Sefer is not for you. That's also like an important thing that Spinner, I heard from him, that, the Ramchal didn't write for, like to try to convince minim and apikoresim and non-Jews. He wasn't trying to convince an atheist. That's not what any of his Svarim are geared towards. Ramchal is here for us, for people who believe in Hashem, and we know Hashem, we know it's true, we know, but we have a hard time, not believing it, but we have a hard time understanding it, a hard time being miyushav, a hard time being okay with it, let's say, how we would say nowadays, right? That's really what all the Ramchal Svarim are about. And like I say this always in my teach Das Funus now in Shana Bed, a person who, he goes at the beginning of that Sefer there, he goes through the Yud Gimel Ikrei Emunah, and he says there's 9 of them that, no, I don't have any problem with Nevuas Moshe Rabbeinu and Torah Min HaShamayim and Kadmus of Hashem and that Hashem made the world and all those things I don't have a problem with. What does he have a problem with? And again, a problem, he says, I believe be'emunah shalema in hashgacha, in schar va'onesh, in Mashiach, in Tchias HaMesim, but I don't understand them. I believe them because I know I have to believe them. And I would give up my life if somebody said, deny Tchias HaMesim right now or die, I'd give up my life, right? But I don't understand what I'm giving up my life for, right? So that's what Ramchal's Sfarim, are for. That's what he's saying over here also, or that's what I'm saying is that, if there are people who these 6 ideas don't sit well with them, so then they shouldn't try to learn the rest of the Sefer, because the whole rest of the Sefer is based on emunah that the source of everything we're talking about is these things. And what are these things? Amita, that he exists, that he's completely and absolutely perfect, that he's the only thing that has to be, that he's not dependent on anything else, that he is completely, simple, one, and that there's one and not 2, right? That, this is how we have to go into this conversation. If a person, like I said, a person has, issues with some of these, so then it's not going to, this is not the Sefer. You have to go and read the Permission to Believe and Permission to Receive and those types of books that are going to, help with Emunah, but okay. So let's just start after this. Each week now, Shachris is getting a little bit later, so this is like the earliest I'm going to have to stop. So next week I'll be able to go like 5 minutes later, hopefully, and then the next week a little bit more. But I want to just get started in the next chapter. Okay, so Perek Beis. So Perek Aleph was telling us about Hashem and laying the the groundwork for what we need to understand what he's going to tell us. Okay, Perek Beis v'tachlis abriya. Okay, why did this entity do anything? Right? No, that's okay. Very good. So we know there's this entity out there and is beyond anything and everything. So why stir up things? Why? Okay. Aleph. Hine. Hatachlis babriya haya lehetiv mituvo yisbarach lezulaso. Right? So the Ramchal starts us off right away with this idea that the point of everything, and he'll explain to us exactly how everything comes from this in a second, but the point of everything was for this entity to be able to give, bestow good. V'hine tira, ki hu levadu yisbarach shemo, hashleimus ha'amiti ha'meshulol mikol ha'chesronos. Hashem is the only entity that is the one that is completely perfect and shalem and lacking in any lack. There is no other shlemus like him. So any shlemus that we're ever going to talk about, right? Any perfection, anytime we're going to use that word, here in Israel, mushlam, like, how is it? Oh, it's perfect, mushlam. Yeah, any, what do you mean when you say that chocolate cake was mushlam? What exactly do you mean by perfection, right? So you mean, which is exactly the thing over here. You mean, well, if you really think about it, somebody starts doing this on a date, I don't know, so maybe you send them to come start schmoozing with me. I'll probably like to talk to them. So he said, well, what I mean mushlam, I mean, really, I mean relative to other, to other chocolate cakes. Right? And maybe even I might mean that, relative to all cakes, because the chocolate cake is better than all cakes already. Right? Any shleimus that I'm ever going to talk about, right, is only going to be relative to things that I know that are less shalem, right? But I can't ever really talk about shleimus, right? I can only use the word shleimus in relative terms, because there is no thing that's actually mushlam over here in the world, right? There's no such thing as something that's actually perfect in creation, right? Even this idea, you can't even make a perfect circle, right? Everybody knows this, like, pi can't exist in real life. There's no such thing as they have a sphere. I saw this on a YouTube channel, Veritasium. It's like one of these nerdy science channels, and I saw that he has a sphere. There's a sphere somewhere in Norway. I don't know exactly where it is, which is the most perfect sphere down to the atoms, like mamash, down to the atomic, ability to get something as close to pi as possible. So there is in the world the perfectest sphere you could have, right? But there's no such thing as a perfect sphere. There's no such thing as a perfect circle, right? It's a mathematical concept. Veritasium. Okay, the V at the beginning. Okay, oh, you saw it. Somebody said they saw that one. Yeah, very interesting. So, right, but real perfection cannot be in the physical world. There's no such thing as physical perfection, right? So when anytime v'nimtza shekol shleimus sheyaduma chutz meshleimus yisbarach hine enem shleimus amiti elo yikari shleimus be'erech le'inyan chaser mimenu. Anytime we're going to talk about shleimus, we're always going to be talking it in relative terms. We're going to talk about something, chocolate cake, better than less perfect chocolate cake. But obviously, there's nothing actually perfect about that chocolate cake. The only thing that's actually shalem is Hashem. Now, if the whole point is for Hashem to give something to somebody else, to give good to something else, to be able to help another entity, to give to something else, so then it wouldn't make sense for that good to just be a little bit, right? If the whole point is for Hashem to be able to give to something else, right, it would make sense that would only be fulfilled. He would have to give the best good that they can possibly receive. So therefore, it's like, a logical progression over here. Hashem, the point is to give good. And if he wants to give good, so then that won't be fulfilled unless he gives the best possible good. Now, who is the best, or what is the best possible good? Hashem is the best possible good, right? And if Hashem is the best possible good, so then the only way to fulfill the giving of the best good to the recipient is to give of, I have to switch fingers now, of himself, right? Those are the 4 steps he has to give. That's the best good that a recipient can receive, is to be a part of Hashem. Because that's the best good that is available. However, that can't be, right? That we just got finished saying before, that Hashem is unique in this way, and Hashem's goodness can't be like our goodness, and Hashem, right? Or we're not the same as Hashem in any which way, right? So how can it be? So that's how he worked it out. That yes, since the only true good is in Hashem, the only true shleimus is in Hashem, so how can we have any sort of access to that? Because Hashem is going to give us allow us to become a piece of Him. We're going to be able to be a part of Him, but also Hashir, She'ef Shalem, Shizapku, to whatever degree we can. Again, we're always going to be a nivra, we're always going to have a consciousness that is somehow separate from Hashem, right? However, to the degree that it is possible, Hashem is going to allow us to be a part of Him. So now it comes out amazing that, even though we just got through saying that no nivra can ever be declared perfect, because perfection in this world can only be relative, even in the spiritual world, only be relative to other things. However, since Hashem is letting us become a part of Him, so yes, we will have access to true perfection, because it's going to be through Hashem. Through our clinging to Him, we're going to tap into that perfection that we would not be able to if we were a separate entity. And we're going to be able to tap into that and be a part of Hashem to the extent that that's possible. So that comes out. So what's the summing up? And then I'm sorry, I'm like just rushing because I have to get to the basketball court. We're davening outside now. The whole okay, whatever it's okay. So what if somebody asks you, why did Hashem create the world? What's the point of everything? Hashem wanted to create a nivra, a creation that would be able to be a part of Hashem as much as that's possibly possible. And why? In order to be good to that nivra. That's where we're finishing for today. Okay, have a great Shabbos, everybody. Great to see you all, and I look forward to Bezrat Hashem continuing. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbos. Bye-bye.